Before I begin, I will just ask everyone to stay on mute for the duration of the webinar. And if you have any questions or comments that come up during the demo, please feel free to put those in the chat function. And I'll check the chat throughout, but I will answer all the questions at the very end of the session after the demo. If you need any additional help with MAXQDA coding or analysis, you can feel free to reach out to me after the session. My email is danielle@jacquescs.com. You can also reach out to me on Twitter at @DannyJacques or at either of my websites. And just a little bit more about me. I've been using MAXQDA now for about 3 years. I first got to know the software while I was working on my master's degree at the University of Chicago. And since then, I've become a professional MAXQDA trainer and consultant. So I do this full-time, teaching webinars and teaching other academics and professionals like you how to use the software, and also doing co-analysis projects from time to time. So really feel free to reach out if you have a question after the fact, or if you need any additional help, I'd be happy to assist you with that as well. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to open up MAXQDA. And for the next 40 minutes or so, I'm going to just give a demo of how to import and analyze Twitter data using the software. This webinar does assume a little bit of prior knowledge about MAXQDA, so I won't be going over the very basics today, like coding or anything like that. But if you wanted to get a little bit more instruction about MAXQDA, especially if you're more of a beginner, I invite you to the beginner webinars that are also on the website. I teach a bunch of them, and that can be a great place to start. The other places to look if you're still at the more beginner level are this Getting Started guide here, and the online manual, which is really in-depth and complete with lots of step-by-step tutorials on everything. But I will be going over a couple of the different analytical tools in depth here, so you should be covered on those. I'm going to go over the process and really importing and analyzing Twitter data in MAXQDA consists of 5 different steps. The first is, of course, importing your Twitter data, which requires thinking about what search terms or what hashtags or which users are really going to give you the most robust data possible to answer your research question. And sometimes that means refining what you're looking for and re-importing data afterwards. 2, auto-coding to create categories. So you'll see how we can automatically create codes based off of the hashtag and the tweet author, and then use that for our analysis later. 3, you want to filter based on relevancy. So maybe not every user who's tweeted on a specific topic is useful, and you can filter them out. 4, you want to present the frequency of relevant aspects. So when you do find relevant hashtags or relevant users, how do you present the frequency of those in a way that's easily digestible? And then 5, visualizing your results for publication. We'll see a lot of really cool visualization tools today that you could even copy and paste straight from the program into your article or dissertation for a really nice visual effect. So without further ado, I'm going to actually start a new project, and we'll just see how it looks from start to finish. Of course, I'm going to click on New Project for that. And I, of course, have to just name it and save it to my computer. I'll go with the date. Just a note about this little stop sign here that I'm getting. I am saving to my desktop, which is backing up to the OneDrive. If you're not aware, working with MAXQDA in a cloud-based system, such as the Microsoft OneDrive, Dropbox, or the Apple equivalents of those programs, you run the risk of losing data because it can crash your program while you're working. So don't do what I'm about to do and don't save into the cloud. Transferring your files through the cloud through Dropbox, totally fine. You just don't want to be working in the cloud. I hope that's clear. All right. So now we have this nice blank project, and the first thing we want to do, of course, is to come to our import tab, which will automatically happen if we've started a new project. And then we want to come to our Twitter data option right here. It has the little Twitter icon, shouldn't be too hard to find. Next, we get this menu here where first we have to connect to Twitter, and then we have to narrow down our search terms that we're interested in importing with. So first, of course, you just connect to Twitter. If I click this, it's going to open up an internet browser for me. It's a little slow today. Okay, so here it's just asking whether I want to authorize MAXQDA to access my Twitter account. And it tells you what the permissions are that you're granting it here. And all you have to do is just hit Authorize App. So this does require having an active Twitter account that's currently logged in on your browser. You don't have to have followers, you don't have to have posts, you just have to have the account. So just hit Authorize, and then it will tell you to go back to MAXQDA, and you should see your name right here in the menu. Next, you just have to check off this little box here, which is agreeing that you're not going to use any of the content for advertising purposes or to identify people and use it for nefarious purposes. So pretty easy, I think, to do that. And then, like I said, you have down here these search terms. So you can tell it to search for specific words or keywords here. You can search for phrases, any of these words, none of these words, and then specific hashtags. And then below you have from accounts, to accounts, or tweets that mention a specific account. You can do any combination of these. So you could look for, I don't know, cats, but not dogs, cats and dogs, completely up to you what you're looking for here and what matches your research question. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm actually going to just pull from one of the most prolific tweeters that I know, and that would be the President of the US, Donald Trump. So I'm going to just put in here from these accounts at real. Actually, I don't think I need the at sign, just real Donald Trump. And like I said, I could filter this down more. If I just put in from real Donald Trump, I'll just get all of his tweets that he's put out there recently. But I could also filter it down more, so I could say I only want what he has to say about the coronavirus this week, or so on. But we'll keep it broad for this. And lastly, you can choose the language that you want to pull in. There's a nice list down here of different languages. And then you have to specify the date range. So one of the caveats to this, however, is you can only pull tweets that are up to 1 week old. So you'll see right now we are June 19th, and the farthest back I can go is June 12th. This isn't anything to do with MAXQDA and its capabilities. This actually has to do with Twitter's policies. It does not allow the import of tweets older than 1 week. If you're interested in getting tweets older than 1 week, you can buy them from Twitter. I know that's possible. Or you can recruit somebody who has some web scraping capabilities and get their help. However, I know sometimes that can get into some pretty gray areas legally. So I would recommend first always trying to go through Twitter and buying them from Twitter directly. Lastly, this option here is include retweets. So in this example here, we can say, yes, we want the things that Trump has retweeted. If we leave it unchecked, we'll only get his original tweets. We'll include the retweets, why not? Once you have all that set up, you just hit run search. And you'll get this nice table here, which is a preview of all the tweets that it found that match your search terms. You can see down here in the very bottom corner how many tweets it found. Looks like we have about 200. And then each column has the metadata in it. So here you can see we have the date and time. That's, of course, when the tweet was published. Tweet is the actual text of the tweet, what it says. Hashtags, if there are hashtags on the tweet, you'll see them in this column. You can see the type, so again, whether that's a tweet, a retweet, or I believe reply is also an option for here. Yep, right here, we have some replies. If it's a reply, who is it a reply to? And then going right, you have some metadata on the author. So here we have the author. Of course, we only have one. That's Donald Trump. We have the author's real name, their location, their time zone, their URL. So this is a link to their profile. This is their description here. We have the number of followers, the number of people that they follow. So he only follows 46 different accounts. The number of tweets, whether they're verified, what time the profile was created, and then the number of retweets and likes on that specific tweet. Finally, you have the language here. Of course, this is all in English. And then the source of the tweet. So he's tweeting from an iPhone, but you'll also see things like Twitter for Android or Twitter web app, and so on. So this is just, again, a preview. It's to kind of show you what your search was able to pull up. And if you're okay with it, you just have to come down here to the bottom right corner and hit import data. So once you hit import tweets, it's going to ask you if you want to autocode your Twitter data. You can do this now, or as it mentions, you can do this later at any time. I like to do this up front. And what this is going to do is it's going to take the authors in your set and the hashtags in the set and turn those into codes in your code system. So let's take a look at that. You can upload up to 10,000 tweets at a time with the Twitter import function. And it's going to create a new document for each set of 1,000 tweets in the sample. So you can see here already in the document system, it made a document group with the date and time of the import. And then under that, it has documents containing the tweets itself. So right here, we have tweets 1 through 206. That's all we have. But if we had more than 1,000, you would see tweets 1 through 1,000. And then tweets 1001 through 2000, and so on, all the way to 10,000. And same here in this screen up front, it's asking us which documents we would like to autocode. So again, if you have a larger sample than what I have here, you'll have multiple documents to do it with. And all you have to do is just make sure that they're checked off here. Next, down here, we have to select our hashtags and select our authors. I'll start with authors because this is going to be easy for us. We only have one author. It's Donald Trump, of course, and I'm just going to give him the green check mark by double-clicking on him. Once he's green, I can hit OK. And you'll see now over here it says one selected for the Autocode Tweets with Author. And then we'll do the same thing for the hashtags. We have a short list of hashtags here. So we can go through one by one and select the ones that we want to autocode. And this is where, filtering starts to play a small role, because maybe some of these hashtags aren't super helpful to the research question we're trying to ask. We can decide that at this point. Maybe I don't want 2A as a hashtag right now. I can choose to continue to block that, or I can accept it. I can also accept everything at once by clicking on the first row, holding down Shift on my keyboard, and then clicking the last one, and just hit the green check mark for all of them. Another note just about these is you can see there's also some frequencies here in the chart. So we have the number of tweets that the hashtag belongs to. So that can help you decide whether or not you want to keep something. If one hashtag's been used 1,000 times and then another's only been used once, maybe you don't need that one that was only used that single time. And then this percentage here is the percentage of tweets in the sample that contain this hashtag. So he actually doesn't hashtag a lot, which is a little surprising to me. But anyways, we'll just hit OK. And now you can see we have 13 hashtags selected, and all we have to do now is autocode. And now we have our tweets successfully imported. So like I mentioned, we have the documents over here. Again, it's a document group with the tweets contained in documents within that group. And then in our code system here, we have a top-level code that has the Autocode Twitter data with the date and time of the import. And then we have a secondary level code with tweet author, followed by all the authors. And then another secondary level code which with the hashtags, with all of the hashtags listed underneath. Lastly, you'll see in the document browser, we now have a table similar to what we saw at the very beginning. And this contains the full text of the tweet and also all of the metadata as we scroll to the right here. You'll also see now that each tweet or each row in the table is coded over here on the side. So each row is coded with the author name, which again is just Donald Trump each time. And then if the tweet also has a hashtag, it's coded as well. So you can see this one has KY02 as the hashtag, and it's actually coded with that as well. All right, so from here, we can start to analyze this set as if it's any other type of data. So we can code this manually as if it were an interview, for example. So if we decided we wanted this tweet to have a different thematic code applied to it, we could certainly create our own code in the code system and then apply it by dragging and dropping. You can also do the highlight coding on it, of course, emoji coding, any type of regular coding can be applied here. You can also retrieve segments. So if I recall my retrieved segments window here, I can activate the tweets I want to look at and then activate the hashtags I want to look at. So we have 2 tweets with MAGA as the hashtag. So if I wanted to see what those are, I can activate my tweets, activate MAGA. And now in retrieved segments, we have both of those tweets here, and we can see what exactly he is saying about his catchphrase. I like to use some of the visual tools up here in the Visual Tools tab, of course. The first being the Code Matrix browser, and the second being the Code Relations browser. We'll start with the Code Matrix browser here. I'm just going to reset my activation so things look nice, and open this up. If you're not familiar already with the Code Matrix browser, what this tool does is it shows you the frequency of codes across documents in a very visual way. So it's a little similar to across tabs, but you'll see how it's more visual than that. And the first thing you do here is to decide what you want your columns to be. So you can have either documents or document groups in this case. So of course we only have documents, actually one document right now. But if we had more, we could compare those sets of 1,000 tweets to each other. Or if we had multiple imports from different weeks, we could also compare the groups. So that would be comparing, for example, the Twitter data from June 19th to maybe Twitter data from May 19th or so on. We'll do documents for now and just hit OK. This code matrix browser here is kind of giving us the idea of a crosstabs where we're visually seeing the frequency of codes across documents or across document groups. So you can see now here we have our set of tweets, and as we go down, we can visually see which hashtags or which codes have the most frequency in the set. So you can see here, of course, our real Donald Trump author code is the biggest node here. That's, of course, because we've coded for Donald Trump 206 times, versus all the hashtags have 2 or even just 1 hit. So what it's doing is it's saying, okay, this has 2 hits, and 2 is much smaller than 206, so this 206 is going to be visually larger. So here is where you might want to start playing with activation. Really quick, if you're not familiar with activation in MAXQDA, it is the process by which you tell the program which codes and which documents you want it to look at for any particular visual tool. So I'm going to restart here, and I'm only going to activate my tweet hashtags. So we're going to get rid of real Donald Trump. He is definitely skewing our data. And we'll activate our tweets and go back in. And now you can see that this is a quite different output here, where we have MAGA as being slightly larger than all the other hashtags, of course, because this one has 2 and all the others have 1. This will be more impressive if you have a larger hashtag set to look at, or if you have many authors. You can see who is the most prolific author on a specific subject very quickly, very visually with this tool here. And like I mentioned, you could also compare groups of tweets over time using this code matrix browser. So it would be interesting perhaps to see MAGA was only used twice this week, but maybe he uses it 5 times next week. We would be able to very quickly see that in here. Next is the code relations browser. That's also on the visual tools strip up here. And what the code relations browser does is, in a very similar visual way, it shows you whether there are any overlaps between 2 codes. So, for example, maybe he's used MAGA with Vision We Lead. We'll be able to see that. So we'll be able to see whether 2 hashtags are being used in the same tweet. Let's check it out. Again, here, there are just some options that we can use to further define what we're looking for. It's asking what the rows and columns are going to be. And in this case, I do want to make sure that we have activated codes only and not all codes. Otherwise, we're going to be pulling our author again here. So we're just going to work with our hashtags, which are already activated. And then the type of analysis here, these are fairly nuanced. So the first option here is intersection of codes. That's going to show us whether the coded segments intersect, which in this case would mean whether, again, something has been coded with MAGA and with Vision We Lead. The other options are proximity of codes. I think this works better for a traditional analysis on, for example, an interview, because this is going to look for codes within sentences or within paragraphs of each other. And then the last option here is just looking for the occurrence of codes in the same document. And in this case, this isn't helpful at all, because it's just going to tell us, yes, he used MAGA, and also in the same week he used 2A. But it's not going to tell us whether those were used in the same tweet. So for the Twitter analysis, you want to keep it intersection always. And then lastly, only for activated documents. Again, this is up to you. Just always double check. We only have one document here, but you might want to make that more precise based on what your data set looks like. So we'll hit OK. And now we have something that looks a little bit similar to the Code Matrix browser, but we have now our tweets, our hashtags in rows and in columns. And where there's a little square, that's showing us that he used it in the same tweet. So we can see now he used with Vision We Lead in the same tweet as USMA 2020. We can see the same thing right here, USMA 2020 with Vision We Lead. And we have Go Army with Vision We Lead, and USMA 2020 with Go Army as well. So a couple correlations there. What we can do with this information now is use the complex coding query to pull the tweets that have both of these hashtags attached to it. So let's see the one that has Go Army and with Vision We Lead both in it. We know from mousing over the little node here that there's just one tweet that has both of these in it. But let's go find it. So I'm going to X out of this. I'm going to go to my Analysis tab. And the third option up here is Complex Coding Query. Oops. And I chose the second option down here, Complex Coding Query, instead of the regular one, and it opens up this dialog box here. This is a pretty advanced tool. There are lots of different functions in this drop-down box here, but the good news is the tool is actually telling you exactly what it's doing in the illustration over here. So if we just select intersection, we can see in this little illustration over here that it's looking for coded segments that intersect somehow. So somewhere between the start and end of sentence 1 and 2, there's an overlap in those codes, and it's going to give you just that segment that intersects. So it'll be like the cross section of those two sentences or those two coded segments. If you just have code 1 and then code 2 and they don't overlap or intersect at all, nothing will happen. And the way that we've coded here, when hashtags are applied to the tweet, it's applied to the whole tweet. So we can use the intersection function here to pull the tweet that has both of those hashtags in it. I hope that that's clear. Let me know if that is not, and I can try to re-explain it. But once we decide on the function, we now have this box here where we have to tell it the codes that we're looking at. Like, which codes exactly do we want to see the intersection of? You can see what it did automatically was insert all the activated codes, and we don't want that. We know that there's no tweet in this sample that has all 10 tweets hashtags in it. So I'm going to just delete them all from the list, and instead just drag and drop the ones that we said we were interested in. So I believe we said it was Go Army, so we'll drag and drop Go Army, and I think it was with Vision We Lead. Yes. Now it's looking again for the tweets that have both of these hashtags in it, and you can see down here in the bottom right corner, it says segments found 1. And we already know from our code relations browser that there's indeed one tweet that has both of those hashtags. So we already know that, great, we found it. Now we just have to hit start. And now in our retrieved segments window down here, we can see exactly what that tweet is. So he's just talking about West Point. There's a flyover. Very happy for our army, I guess. You can do that for any number of hashtags, and you don't even need to start necessarily with the code relations browser, but I think that this tool is a great way to just visually, very quickly find those overlapping hashtags, and then go back to the complex code inquiry to pull the text from those tweets. All right. So those are just a couple tools that you can use to analyze the Twitter data. You can use these tweets for, those tools for any number of things. But the other thing that you can do on MAXQDA specifically for Twitter data is under the Analysis tab and the Twitter option right here. The first option here is Autocode Tweets. You'll remember how at the very beginning when we imported the tweets, it asked us whether we wanted to autocode them. So like I mentioned, you can do that up front like we just did, or you can choose to do it later. So if you had decided to do it later, if you wanted to do it, you would just come back here and autocode, and you'll have to go through that whole process. Otherwise, you can just come to Analyze Tweets here, and this will open up a whole bunch of other tools that you can use to look at your data. So when you do that, it's going to just ask you which sets of tweets you're interested in. So you can really define which ones you're concerned with, especially if you've started to do this over time and have a large set. You can confine it to, just tweets in June, just tweets in May, everything. It's up to you. So you just check them off and hit Analyze Tweets. All right, now we have another table similar to what we've already seen. So of course we have the author in the first column, the date time, the type of tweet it is, the tweet text, the number of retweets, the number of likes, and the number of followers here. Over here on the left-hand side of the screen, we have filters. So right now we have 200 tweets. Depending on your topic, you could have several thousand tweets. And these filters here are your chance to decide what really matters to your research question, or what are you really trying to find out. Instead of looking at hundreds or thousands of tweets, you can filter it down. So you can filter it by type. So if I only wanted to look at his original tweets, I could do that just by checking it off. And you can see already that there's 114 that meet that criteria. I could filter it according to the most frequently used words, the most frequently used hashtags. So again, here, this could be, another way of looking at retrieved segments, for example, where I only want to look at a specific hashtag. I can filter it like that. You can also filter by the number of tweets from authors. So again, if you are looking at a hashtag as opposed to what a specific account is saying, you can filter it down so that you're only looking at the authors who are the most active. You can also filter by the authors who have the most followers. So maybe you only want to look at people who have, 10,000 followers or more. And then you're getting out all the little people who have, 10, 20, 100 followers who are just, their friends and colleagues. You can also filter according to mentioned accounts. So I could look at what he's saying to Fox News if I wanted to. And lastly, filter according to language and sources. There we go, Twitter for iPhone. So I could only look at tweets from Android or tweets from iPhone, up to me. The more boxes you check here, the smaller your list of tweets is going to get. It's going to continue to filter it based on the things that you check off. And again, you can tell how many tweets will be left in the set based on the number in the parentheses here. You can reset all the filters as well. So if I check off a bunch of things, I only have this one here. Maybe I don't want this anymore. I can come up here in the top left corner and hit reset all filters. And now I'm back to my nice long list. The other things that you can do from here are a word cloud. That's, of course, the little word cloud icon up here at the top. And this will produce a word cloud based off of the tweets in this list. So right now I don't have any filters set, so we'll do a word cloud on the whole 206 tweets. But again, I could maybe filter it down to just his original tweets, and I don't know, just the ones that are mentioning himself for some reason. Oh, now there's 0. The Fox News ones. If I did the word cloud now, it would be just based off of these 5 tweets here. I see that I got a question. It's a really good question. I will get to it at the end. Thank you. So let's see what the word cloud looks like here. This isn't super helpful, right? Because we have all these filler words. We have of, we have with, we have in. The way to make this helpful is to go into this word frequencies option up here at the top left and start to ban words from it. So I can do that just by double clicking and I'll get the stop sign. I can do that individually, or again, I can click on it and then shift click to stop multiple. Oops. We'll just do a couple here. Okay. Then X out. Let's do it again. There we go. So now with the stop list applied, this word cloud on those 5 tweets looks a lot more helpful, right? We can already see he's talking about cities, he's talking about Democrats, fought, blame, terrible, you know the drill. This could be a really good way also of kind of getting the dominant themes in many, many tweets here. And just for the sake of example, I'll show you again the word cloud with more tweets. So like I said, that was just the word cloud of these 5 here. But if we reset our filters and run it again, well, let's add more words here. You can already see, even without editing the stop list here, this is already quite different from what we saw before. Now we have things like endorsement, departments, awarded, amendment, fake, jobs, and so on. So filtering can be a really great way of, you know, just really sparsing out what it is you're looking for. And lastly, we have this little stats icon next to our word cloud. And this is similar in the sense that it will pull the tweets for whatever is in this window here. So whatever you filtered down, it will give you statistics based on the metadata of just those tweets. So again, right now we don't have any of our filters set. So if we do this, it will be stats for the whole 206 tweets. We can take a look at that. So the first thing is these really nice bar graphs. And you can see we have the day of the week. So we can see, you know, he's really busy on Wednesday, I guess, because he's not tweeting. Most of his tweets come on Thursday and Friday and Saturday. We can adjust the metadata that we're looking at up here in this by doing the arrows. So here we have the time of day that he's tweeting. So I think this is interesting because you can actually see the time that he's sleeping based on the fact that he doesn't have any tweets during those hours. And when he's most active looks like right when he wakes up. The type of tweet, so whether it's a tweet, a retweet, or a reply. The most frequently used words. Again, for this to be helpful, you do have to edit that stop list a little bit. But we already have here president a lot, Trump, etc. We have the most frequently used hashtags, which of course we already know is MAGA with just 2, and then everything else is 1. And then most frequently use hashtags by case sensitivity in case that matters. Then we have the author name. Of course, 100% of our sample here in this example is Donald Trump, but if you pulled a hashtag, you'll have many authors and you can see them based on the number of tweets they've put out. Again, the author's real name, the authors by number of followers, the source, again, Twitter for iPhone, he's exclusively on his iPhone rather than on a computer, for example. And then the language, English, unknown. I'm not sure what causes something to be unknown on here, but these are all English. And then the number of retweets. So we have over 100 retweets here, number of likes, and followers. You can change the way that any of these bar graphs look. So let me find a good one here. So for example, this day of the week chart here, we have the options up here in the top right corner where we can turn it into a vertical bar graph. Depending on what you're looking at, I think this looks a lot nicer. You can also change it into a pie chart here. Then you also have the option to change the color if you like. You can put a gradient on it. You can change the color scheme. Now it's black. Let's get some color back. I like that better. And then you can also toggle, some of the titles on the chart. You can get rid of the bottom label. You can display scale or not. And you can also choose whether you want to display percentages or just frequency. So here we have 5.8% of all the tweets were on Monday. But if we unclick the percentage sign, we can see there's 12 tweets on Monday. Likewise, you can get rid of that number label if you don't want it. And you can get rid of your y-axis labels as well. So lots of different options. I think that these charts are really nice to look at, honestly, and they can be a really great way of displaying frequencies in your article or whatever it is that you're working on. And you can copy it straight to your clipboard by coming up here in the top right corner and clicking copy to clipboard instead of, doing a print screen or using the snipping tool to get a screenshot. Finally, you can also look at this in a frequency chart instead of as a graph. That option is up in the very top left corner, and that's the table view here. So now we just have a classic frequency chart instead of, the bar graph. And you can display it this way as well. And similar to the bar graph, you can, copy this to clipboard and insert it right into your article or dissertation. All right, so that was all the demo I had for you today. Thank you all so much for attending. I really appreciate you being here and spending some time with me, and I hope that you found this helpful. Once again, if you want additional help after the fact, you can feel free to reach out to me. Really, no question is too big or too small. I'd be happy to help you, and I hope that wherever you are, you're safe and healthy. And with that, I'll leave you with a catchphrase that I like from MAXQDA, which is research is a journey. Travel it well. Thank you.